Then the moment I was through the door, I slammed it shut with all the force of my magic. Seconds later, there was another magical aura flare that Sky forced to lock up against the door. Without a thought, I swung around and pointed my saddle blaster right at the sealed opening and fell back onto my haunches, gasping for breath. My chest heaved heavily, my heart racing like an engine, forcing blood through my retching body with more fury than a raging river. All the while, my wide eyes quivered, locked in the sealed door as the clang of hungry hooves upon the opposite side rang out. Every moment I sat there was one just spent hoping the fuckers couldn't get through. Well, after several long seconds of baying, scrapping, and clattering from the sealed door failed to producing ghouls, then my breathing finally slowed and I took in a great lungful of air. Wiping the thick, waste strands of my soaked mane from my misted visor, I heard a steady assault upon the opposite side of the door grid to an eerily silent halt. It vanished a second later, leaving only the faint hum of the dull light above us to fill the air. Collecting myself, I looked around to find we were now in a dimly lit service tunnel. Dark red concrete formed at every surface, driving us to the cold rectangular tomb, its constant gray surface only broken by rows of pipes, service wires, and to my right, a small window. It was, I recognized, unnervingly similar to the place I spent most of my time back in Churn. Instead of humid as seeming, this tunnel was strangely chilly. Cliff and Sky seemed to be as reluctant to take their eyes off the door. Ochre leaned against the wall beside the blue unicorn, and Cherry sat up against the wall to my left, rubbing a hoof to the back of her neck tenderly. The initial urge to ask the obviously flawed question was resistant. No putting here was okay. Looks like we owe you another one, I stated, in as friendly a tone as I could muster, motioning to the door. Cherry just sniffed, wiping her nose with a hoof before nodding weakly. Then she lowered her other forehoof and just sat there for a moment. She was thinking again. She did that a lot. Well, of course she did. She was a smart pony. I might stand harshly as if some part of her really doubted the idea. I once again quickly suppressed that thought, before looking forward. There I saw another door to the right wall of the room. Words, "You were warned," painted in dark crimson upon the cold metal. Unfortunately, that wasn't all that was the blood covered. The floor was smothered with it. Well, I could follow dark carpet, several trails of which led out under the door we just sealed. Bloody hoof marks the cold gray walls, some of which appeared to have been dragged across it. Once again, pointing back to the outer door. I had a horrible feeling that being some pony in here when that door was open wasn't the best way to go. That was evident more so by a number of disembodied limbs that splayed torsos up against the far wall, the gnawed internals of which led out the same direction as most of the crimson decor. The more time passed, the more the sight seemed to affect everybody. Even after the sea of corpses outside, this was a shock, and not as much as I knew it should be. I forced my own mind away from the idea and tried not to let my eyes linger upon the bloody message scrawled across the inner door. Instead, I focused my attention to Cherry, who was lifting herself from the blood-soaked floor. She looked at the gruesome display and at least tried to sink back into the stoic cocoon the last day had forced her into. That weak resolve finally seemed to be failing her, though. "I'll get the door," she stated flatly, and I shrugged at the things my mind persisted to tell me. It took her only 2 attempts to get through what she told me was another well-locked door. Can I imagine why somebody would go to so much effort to keep it that way? Oh wait, there was an army of zombies out there. Beyond another door was a small corridor and yet another door, once again locked. Nevertheless, Cherry set to work on just as swiftly. I hoped it would be the last working thing keeping us with our backs to the ghoul-infested subway tunnels. To the right of the corridor was a small room, and I stepped into it to allow Sky and Org space in the tight corridor. I was surprised to find myself finding the urge to not gag at the foul scent of a trash can filled with very old, raw scraps of meat and bone. Nevertheless, I was greeted with a small square box that looked to some kind of office. Far side sat a rusted old set of metal shelves, To my left was a locker, beside which was the smelly trash can. Opposite was a desk, complete with a terminal, drawers, and what appeared to be scribbled on a stack of dry paper. After salvaging what I could from the shelves, 2 packs of sugar apple blooms, a sparkle cola, several stacks of ammo for my scoped rifle, as well as some for Sky's revolver. Began looking through the cabinet. All I discovered was an old magazine that was amazed to survive all of the floods that must happen down here. Today's locksmith. Well, unless I was planning on twiddling with a screwdriver and bobby pin myself, I knew someone who'd really appreciate this. After clearing most of the room, as salvage, there was only one thing left. Terminal. Somewhat reluctantly, I shifted over to it, sitting on an old stool that sat before its desk. A mix of both curiosity and caution wrapped over my mind as I looked at the flickering green screen. One emotion fought to slow my actions enough to ensure that Cherry would finish before I could snoop around. The other retaliated just enough to encourage me to hook my pip buck up to the terminal. Looking at the device on my leg, I tried to ignore the red bars skulking all around me. And after a rather easy hacking attempt, I got to the terminal. The password was null. Damn, Stone Pony was a genius. I was granted with several audio files for my efforts, most of which were recent, only from weeks ago, reaching back about a few months. One lone entry seemed to predate the bombs, however, and I selected that recording first, hoping it was pre-apocalypse enough to be at least something not emotionally desolating. A crackling of static filled the air, lasting for a long moment. Great, it was just another dud. I mentally sighed. I was about to shut off when a hiss of a distant voice began to emerge from the heavy static. This Gold Show. Buck sounded over the buzzing of the recording before I could come up with a sharp leap. All of a sudden, the recording gave a buzzing pop and the voice continued. Finally. Thanks to Lexi, they finally got that thing under control. Anyway, as I was trying to say this in Goldstone, checking in for what feels like the first time in a month. All the sense I've been out on the frizz ever since they found that damn thing in the mines. I mean, I know the normal rose crystals have a way with electronics. That's only like sticking a weak magnet next to your terminal at most. That thing they had down there in the southeast tunnels. I don't know. It's like one massive magnet screwing with everything in the city. Ever since they dug it up, I've been fighting to get these damn things working. Can't be sure if the thing's even working now. I'm just talking to it because what else am I supposed to do down here? They shut this track down for maintenance, so here I am running a standby engineer on the track that's being worked on by a team of engineers just up the trail. Damn this job. You know, I should have gone on strike with the rest of the miners when I had the chance. Too administrative messing with us all. Don't get started me on Oracle. Never heard of them before. But damn, they don't seem to care about any pony. Least of all any of us. They all keep going on denying it, but every pony around here knows it's all the stupid MAS eggheads making that thing down there worse. That thing's not natural. What do they do? Go poke it with a big magical stick. It's like throwing rocks at a hornet's nest, I swear. Oh yeah, then there's that talk of putting the damn thing in the museum. They can shove that thing up their tails for all I care. But now they want to keep it here? By Celestia, I really have to find a new job out of town. The recording fell into static once more before fading away completely. At that I switched it off, moving to the second. My mind was wondering what the bug was talking about. Crystals? Well, there was one magical thing I understood, it was gems. I'd suffer enough for the things into my weapons, that was for sure. Desert roses were what they called the red gems they found around here back before the war. Yet recalling the poster I glimpsed back in the station, I was more of a greater desert rose. Then there was that word Oracle. I'd heard it before, but where? I paused, a sickly feeling that I'd heard it back in the Destiny Corp. That not bonding well with me at all. As for the gem, I knew that roses had an effect on electronics. That was why nobody could use them to make weapons. They were more useful to make like magnets in the production of electricity. Even so, I'd never heard of a desert rose powerful enough to mess with an entire city. I mean, if I were in a god knight, I had mental images of gigantic death lasers blasting down from the clouds. I felt strangely like a crazy raider boss I'd met once, who tried to mix a matrix disruption grenade with some kind of red gemstones in question. The result of that misfortune was hardly predictive, especially for him. All I knew for sure was that wherever this desert rose was, looked like it was very long gone. Especially when the goddess's damn ministries want their hooves on him. Regardless, I was swiftly past my attention on the next recording. This one from only a few months ago. And at the sound of a grizzled buck, I instantly regretted it. I wonder when we finally got this darn thing working again. It's been a couple of weeks, waste of perfect disciplinary material not having this darn thing working. That's a Spark Boy's problem downstairs, so I can finally get back to having some fun. My friend's finally gonna get his little set of warnings to make sure the damn miners do as they're told. Not that he gives two fucks about that anymore. No. He used to show me with them up on the mountain. I'd say they probably just raped my mind like they did to the others. I'm just sitting in for the blood, gore, fight flank at the end of a good day. Helps keep the rage at bay, cause pain, according to Slade's pitiful pleas to come back in through the door. It's a good pain. It's actually good when they take a shot of getting back in. Don't think any of them can read though. Warning I put might make them really think about what they did if they could. I put a little breeze through the other night. Shame I couldn't record that show. She was almost as good as there as she was in bed when the riders came through to get her. Ha ha. I love this darn job. And those rocks on the other side of the door love it too. Get free meals every time one of the slaves really fucks up. That fresh meat doesn't come cheap neither. Hear that, you zombie fuckers? Plus, now we get a new shipment coming along the rails of old Appaloosa. Way I hear it, there's some good competition with those A dealers in Philadelphia. Bet Maul's gonna hide behind his new friends when that comes to buy him too. I just hope these newbies can survive the darn train ride. Because up there doesn't seem to have perfected that yet. No slave's good to us dead. I mean, then they can't scream for me. I can't hear it either. Oh yeah, one last thing. Slate Chip. If you're in here next, take a long look at this darn Needlecaster thing or get the shit off my desk. You're going through that door next, you worm. The recording shot there. My eyes fell over the many more that came after it. None of which I was ever gonna risk listening to. Screams of ponies being eaten alive? Look up through the blood and hoof stained window before me at the room in which ponies had cried and screamed to get away from the ghouls, only to have those sounds drilled in the heads of the others. I'd been wrong about this place. Should have run right over the bridge and just slaughtered as many of the despicable creatures as I could. It's almost on the verge of tears as my mind reminded me this was a wasteland. This was not the worst thing I'd encountered. Just like that, I was dismissing it like I did all of those other awful things. I slipped on the stool. Then I froze as I looked behind me. Clip was there, looking at the screen.
This is how they did, isn't it?
He asked. And I checked to see if I accidentally forgot my plug in my aware bloom or something. I hadn't. That meant he was a smarter pony than me.
You know? They used to tell us where those recordings came from. And when we would question them, most believed it. But I never.
He explained then. His look turned strangely pitiful. You never...
What?
I asked. With no intention of provoking any more of an answer, he remained silent. His eyes fell slightly.
All I thought about was getting through the next few minutes of life. Hoping one day I'd get out. Never thought about any of the others, really. Even when the slavers came and took them away.
He told me simply. I stood up, looking down at him. You're a strong little pony, then. I promise you will get out. I assured him with a weak smile. New things in his head were telling him to doubt that. but he mirrored the weakened expression. I was just glad that no pony else had heard, or even guessed about the recording like he had. No pony needed to know that such cruelty could exist. I don't know how Orc or Sky would feel about the traditions of those who nearly captured them. I knew I couldn't let Cherry find out about what had been going down here. She was a better pony. I had to preserve all of that while I could. At that, I turned tail to the terminal screen, thankful for the pain and relief Sky had given me as I flicked my hind hooves right through it. "Now we're recording for you, you sick fuck," I hissed, and looked back at Clip. The feeling at least seemed mutual. At that, my eyes came to rest upon the piles of scribbled paper that sat on the desk just beside the broken terminal. Seeing the pony mentioned the recording had never removed their stuff at all. At that, I wonder if some of the pony blood in the other room had been theirs. I shuddered, and looked at the papers to find there was some kind of blueprint detailing how a pony might possibly make a special needlecaster from a collaboration of rare parts as well as a Desert Rose gem. I had no idea whether it was an energy weapon, ballistic, or non-lethal, but as much as I suspected every aspect of what I just heard about these ponies, I grabbed the blueprints in my magic and stuffed them into my saddlebags. My Fitbook's new inventory spell kindly storing them for me, labeling them as Red Needler blueprints. If nothing else, it would at least keep these filthy ponies from ever getting their hooves on such a weapon. I was fun to turn back and act upon my bold statement about torching the bridge at the idea. As I exited the room, I was in with another triumphant "yes" from Jerry, followed by a relieved sighs from the others. Preserve her. Save her. Give at least one good pony in the wasteland. And I repeated as the door slid open to reveal another tight pipeline corridor. "Here. You'll understand this better than me," I informed Cherry generously, lifting the copy of Today's Locksmith over to her. She looked skeptically. Then, despite all the things I knew were going on in her head, her muzzle curled into a smile.
Don't know if I read that one. Thanks,
she said appreciatively. It was a welcome change to her blunt tone, and as much as I resented the idea, her cuteness was another major reason to save her. I stepped into the doorway, and Pitbuck very kindly reminding me that this was the quickest way to the subterranean loading bay, was to the left as was the quickest way to the stable tech hub. So I had to figure out how to get to the ladder with the others. Yeah, I just crossed the bridge when I came to it. Right now, all I was doing was keeping them alive. "Come on. Pitbuck says the way out is this way," I stated. I could also see several red bars marked on my EFS just ahead. But in truth, every slaver I mowed down after hearing what they did to the ponies down here, which just meant a little less suffering and cruelty in this already far too hard and cruel world. I just hoped stopping as many of the evil ponies as I could absolve me from all the other things I'd done wrong as of late. Okay, so this was really a bad plan. I was beginning to realize that now more than ever. What choice had we had? The master chamber I was now staring at was a moment to just now bet at an idea this was turning out to be. The colossal crossing of train lines, tunnels, and industrial machinery looked more like a mangled wires I'd seen inside terminals expanded tenfold. Pipes and cables hung from a crumbling concrete roof, trailing down the equally dilapidated walls. Smooth concrete that formed the wall was cracked and marred by huge fissures, water, and brown sewage cascading outwards from within. Crude bridges of rubble and frail catwalks traversed the space between the holes on the wall and the pits that dotted the ground. The smell of blood, sweat, sewage, and explosive cordite filled the baking hot air, as did the scent of molten steel. The screeching in train cars rang out as many tons of rusted pre-war carriages were dragged over gnarled tracks. The clang of hammers, firing machinery, and cries of an abused workforce joined the sounds, as did the cracking of whips and bang of guns. Monolithic pillars of concrete were covered by thick metal frames. Massive service elevators carried us large supply crates between large industrial pipes. Mining pits and cages sat down between flame-spurting pipes, and some even hung from high upon the subterranean towers. Rattling chains and sparkling wires were coated by sickly sprays from above as rain trickled down across the electrical surfaces to form frothy brown pools in the deepest pits below. Across the many tracks and steel-encased pillars, I could see several large metal drums and even more rusted boxcars sinking into the mud. Dark cauldrons were coated in hardened slag as their insides glowed red with the bubbling molten liquid that was poured down into them from the larger stone vats above. Streams of the glowing hot glue drained out from holes in their bases, flowing down long pathways before the larger stone vault before disappearing into yet more drums. Around them a vast assortment of metalworking equipment groaned on and on. Rollers, cutters, the sounds of all ground into the cooling metal as if something had dragged a whole steel mill on the ground into this infernal pit. Hell, that's how I'd imagined Philadelphia. Just with more stone and less red sky. In fact, now this was far more like the fiery lair of some kind of evil, mechanical dragon. The spurts of flame, the clouds of embers, smoke, and the fact that the air itself glowed with an orange hue like some infernal chasm only supported that idea. I was even terrified to look at the massive chamber's far corner where a huge chasm, exposed to the storming world above, had swallowed a vast section of the earth. At least a hungry mechanical monstrosity crawled up out of it. I was also frightened the cliff would run out the side of this, especially when I looked down to see hundreds of battered and bloody slaves digging in rocky pits between the rusting rails. Nothing but tire ropes and rags to protect them from the harsh conditions. The excavation pits were ridden by crudely erected walls of scrap and guarded by ponies clad in tarnished brass armor. On the rails above, wagons were pulled by yet more sickly-looking slave ponies. Slavers bringing them from atop the horse of scrap and gemstones they were hauling in the wagons. I frowned. Years of wasteland survival once again, making sure that I was not only concerned by the scene as I knew I should be. I'd seen slavery, I'd seen torture, I'd seen death.
This place is called the furnace. It's where they do most of the work. Most of the slaves are held smaller cells around here too. Instead of above ground,
Club explained, and despite my anxiety, I was glad he'd been the one to accompany me. I'd insisted on scouting out every direction, especially considering one of us could hardly walk. Yet the closer we got into this place, the more he insisted on coming with me. He didn't know this place better than anybody else it seemed. Maybe even better than my pit book.
That means the elevator to the train yard should be back there, around the upper slave pens,
he added, pointing back in the direction we left the others. I was very glad that at least we couldn't have to sneak through the furnace. I nodded to him once. Once later, we turned away from the infernal chest and crept our way back to the others. Even so, every moment the image of the furnace remained in my mind as one of my thoughts persisted to question my morality. How could you just walk away from this? My mind asked, and despite my many sensible excuses, would not let me simply let go of the idea. I swear my morality was going to get me killed all too soon. It's not too pretty, warned the others the moment we were all back together. Cherry took a deep breath as if preparing for another world of horror. I shook my head and mentioned to another corridor. There's a cargo elevator to the train yard that way. Hopefully we can reach it without anybody noticing, I told her. I felt like confirming as much. Not only that, but there was a way up to the surface close by, and a small army of markers. Fortunately, only a few of them are red, which meant the blue ones that remained must be slaves. Well, hopefully this one will work, she muttered at the mention of another elevator. I can't exactly push you upwards, can I? Orc added, but before either of them could say anything more, I took the lead, placing the clip onto my back, and onto Jerry's back as I watched my EFS closely. The dimly lit corridor beyond was stained by crimson graffiti. Bloody words kindly telling me that an area of slavers called the Fun House was this way. Another told me that same about the dinner room being along another corridor to the left. So I rounded another corner. I was presented in the intersection of 4 tunnels. A rotting wooden door covered the pathway directly ahead. The corridor to the left had collapsed. The fifth told me that was the right was the direction we needed to take. That evaluation was swiftly silenced, however, as the wooden door swung open and the armored pony burst out laughing. His spiked breast armor was chipped and battered, coppery turquoise lines appearing where the brass and metal had oxidized, and where a skull shape may have been bolted into his helmet. The brass and bug staggered forward, laughing, and I ducked behind Akka around the corner. He looked drunk, so maybe he was just passing by? Fucking bitch. I'll show you who's boss. He slurred back into the room he'd just come out of, slamming the door closed with a kick of his rear hoofs. Fucking mares. Not better than any of those damn slaves, he added. Near the chime of magic as he took a sip from a bottle he had wrapped in a chain around his neck. So he was a unicorn under all that stupid armor, my mind assessed again. If I had that crap every fucking bitch and fell out there, I'd fucking... The bugs were cut off by a sharp crack in the flash of light. The shot shattered his glass and struck him right in the eye. With a bloody splay, he collapsed into a twitching heap. His skull gnawed by a crimson rag. Clip held his shotgun right above Cherry's head, but as she winced at the loud sand, stared at the bug's switching body with an angry glare. I just looked at him, and at the slaver. My moments won again in flux. These were the ponies that had beaten and tortured him for most of his life. I was the one thinking he had no right to shoot them. Wouldn't you have done the same? I might ask coolly. He'd worn that armor. He was one of them. One of the most infamous slaver groups in the southwest wasteland. He was a monster. Why hadn't you even considered letting him leave? That killing him may be wrong. I thought it's then trying to remind me that we didn't want to attract any attention. Yet he was a monster. I was a good pony, wasn't I? So why shouldn't I kill monsters? I was no different from what I had always done. I strode down from clip to responsibility, singing its holster. Meanwhile, Sherry didn't look proud or sympathetic. She just looked focused. What the what's that? Muffled voice called from the room beyond the door. Right! Now my mind was scorning me for allowing any pony to make a noise, no matter their personal trauma. You're an idiot through and through. The next moment, another brass armor mirror buzzed through the door. The game was up now, though, and she was not spared the wrath of my saddle blaster. The bright beam tore her hide to sizzling sounds, melting her armor back into the molten mess that had once bubbled from the furnaces. Another bug burst through the door after her. I managed to get off a shot as I reached the intersection. The bullet pinged from my scales, only leaving another aching bruise as I took his head clean off with a wet flash of gore. Goddesses, why did he even wear that armor? It was certainly far from their ideal material. The technical part of my mind managed to question amidst all the other turbulence in my head. Nevertheless, I was forced to reload my blaster with a rapidly depleting supply of spark batteries. The other 2 slavers charged through the door. Almost went with a bullet from responsibility. The other managed to get off a shot with a cobbled another together a pistol. The bullet struck Cherry in the left forehoof, and she screamed as it tore right through her and provided stable barding. I felt my own heart stop at the sight of her determination and weapon failing as she staggered to the floor. Just like she'd been shot the last time. Clip rolled over her head and to the floor in front of her as she fell. That hesitation leapt up, tackling the bug before smashing the barrel of my empty blaster against his temple. No party shots, my friend! I called over and over. All the confused feelings I had bundled up exploding out of me. I didn't stop smashing his head until it was a bloody pulp. He was a monster, and I was not a good pony. The barrel of my custom energy weapon gave a metallic crunch and sparked. I pulled it back, blood dripping from its tip as I finished the job with my hoofs. Even with the stuff of the medics coursing through me, the crippled limb began to burn. My stomach twisted into impossible knots. But I didn't care. I'd seen enough of the wasteland these past few days to last a whole lifetime. I'd lost my friend. Left a confused mare to be tortured for eternity. Killed a griffin who couldn't fight for her life and murdered one of the few ponies that may have seen the world when it was a better place when she was hopelessly trapped inside a Mac computer. I was not going to lose the last good pony in the wasteland because I'd already lost myself. Stepping back, I looked to the disfigured barrel of my blaster and frowned. I was going to take some time to fix. There was a lot of things when I got out of this damn nightmare. I saw Cherry clenching her forehead tightly in the doorway. Trails of dark crimson staining her hose as she fought to retrieve some healing supplies with her magic. She moved by her, laying organ against the wall as she tended to the pink mare. The sudden eruption of emotion sank back as I pulled out a healing potion. Here, I called. I was handing the vial of purple liquid over. Sherry looked up at me, at the bloody bodies behind me. She retrieved her golden-trimmed rifle with one hoof as Skyward to bandage the other hand. At that, I turned to Cliff as he stared at the blood-stained door ahead of us. Then the cold quivered, looking down on shotgun as it lay on the floor hopelessly.
I'm sorry,
He stuttered. You shot an evil pony that beat and abused you. You have nothing to apologize for. I assured him bluntly, silencing the part of my mind that was angry at him. He nodded, retrieving a shotgun and using it to stand. Watch them. Anything comes up behind us, you shoot. I told him. Second that I had to say such a thing to a pony his age. She didn't seem to oppose the idea, however. When he leant back, I moved through what was left of the door. I emerged into what appeared to have once been a large storage room. Opposite, a vaguely recognized cargo door was covered by a dull gray shutter. To my left, a large cargo elevator was sitting on this level and rusted frame on the shed visible on the walls around it. A dull light flickered amidst the pipes and wires that crisscrossed the roof. A sickly glow broken not only by the slow rotations of ventilation fans. Despite that, the temperature here was like the city in the middle of a desert should be. Not that I like the brutal humidity any more than the naturally chilly tunnels, or infernal mining chamber. That comfortable sensation, however, was slightly overlooked as a smell hit me next. The foul, musty stench of excrement mixed with vomit and blood, all of which was only intensified by the warm atmosphere. Then my underlying anger once again clawed at the bars of its frail prison as I saw the rows of large cages lining each wall. For a long moment, I prayed it was all just an illusion of gloom. Yes, my EFS had warned. Long rows of cages were filled with sickly-looking slaves. I felt rage course through my veins, likes of which I knew I should not feel. Two brass armored ponies sat in the open cage on the second row up. Swords covered by sheets of metal preventing those in the cages from either side from getting at them. The front door of the cage had also been covered into a ramp allowing access. The return chamber was framed the remaining pair with adequate cover. And after the commotions a few moments ago, it was no surprise they were both on high alert. Clearly these two had not been stupid enough to blindly charge out of the room. And it was at that moment I realized I had no cover of my own as they opened fire. Dragonfire, why did you just stroll in here? Shut up, Brain! You're the one who's not working properly! I went to retort as I bolted for the open elevator. Bullets struck my scales. Each one seemed to hit harder than the last as the pings of pain flared. One glanced at the back of my neck, taking off a large tinge of my mane, and I yelped, driving into that shaft and taking cover behind one of the side walls. Come out here, you bitch! One of the brazen skulls called. Damn you, Brain! Where was that snarky sense of humor when I needed it? And something their stupid little brains was one of the best ways to get them to fuck up. Sound the other door distracted the pair, however. I had no idea which of my friends was firing a shot blasted in from the maintenance tunnel. Regardless, I seized my chance to fire up at the slavers with my plasma rifles. One of them seemed to see the green ball soon enough to duck. The shot hit the back of a cage. My other shot smote through the hole in the wood and sparked into flames as the second slaver clumsily rolled aside. I pulled it back into the cover of the elevator shaft. My lips now sound wishing that I didn't hurt any of these sleeves as I fired so recklessly. There was a clatter of bullets against the wall at my back. narrowly missing the 2 sets of cages flanking the opening in which I was hidden. Another shot came from the door as one of the slavers stopped to reload as through the hole I'd melted in the table. Saw her face as the bullet flew right off, shady brass armor and all. I sold around my concrete cover and the second mirror appeared once more. I dropped into SATS and set 3 bolts of green light right into the side. First melted more of the wood into the charred black mess. Second melted her hind hoof off, and third her left flank. She screamed, wrenching on the floor as she plunged dire profanities. Checking my pip-up for any more trouble, I hastily trotted up to the little nest forged amidst the cages.
You've earned my leg! My f***ing leg!
She cried amidst a fit of spluttered breaths. Not what was left of the charred table aside with my magic, pressing the barrel of my energy weapon to her forehead. She was a monster. You kill monsters, just kill her.
You're never gonna
Get out of the yard. She sputtered before her face melted off in the green flash. I looked up, scavenging the ammunition and guns. Take everything, my mind told me simply. All in an effort to keep my focus where it was needed and not on stupid worries about death, saving ponies, and morality. Lying flung silent, and I turned to see the others had entered the room and now stood on the lowered end of the ramp just behind me. Only Clip didn't seem horrified beside the slaves. Just now looked sad and very angry. Jerry's leg was wrapped in bandages. She fixed her eyes on nothing but me. Then she glanced back to the elevator. She was a good pony. I looked at the dead slaver, then at the slaves, then at my Fitbox map. Directly above us was something I had marked as Rob Ronco Construction Site. Beside it was another rail line. Just to the east were the Stable Tech Hub, MAS Hub, and the Oracle building that was really beginning to nag at my memory. I assumed the construction site and train lights were the yard Clip had told me about when that elevator led right to it. Then I recalled that I only really had this opportunity to get to the Stable Tech building and find out which one the Transcendent were using. Then there was more recent fact that I was now in the middle of a room filled with a whole lot of ponies that could really do some saving. I sighed, looking back at my companion. I knew what she'd ask if she could. She trusted me a good pony, she'd had no trouble asking. It's just proof of that, isn't it? You're not as good as you thought you were. My line mused disappointingly. There's an opening area at the top of the elevator with tracks that lead right out of Princeton. No red bars. Wanna make a difference? I pointed to the slaves with a hoof. Her eyes followed wearily. She levitated up responsibly and gave a crooked smile. Both Sky and Orc looked at me. Both mirrors seemed a little more than uncertain. Right then. I was even afraid the foreman would question me. You want to save every pony here? Sky asked in a shock. And for the first time, her mirror friend didn't offer something sarcastic in response. Argossus, what kind of pony are you? She added. I liked the cherry. I'm not that kind of pony. She is.
Thank you.
The pink mirror said quietly, reaching up to wrap her hoof slightly around my neck. Okay, that was enough of a reward in itself. I felt my heart flutter just like it had done, but when I'd heard of what she'd done for her friends back in Bucktown. Then I nudged her away with a hoof. Oh, gosh, why did I have to do that? Why couldn't I just stay like that with her forever? You get them out. Corridors are clear and none of those bastards got away, so they shouldn't know you're here. At least for now, I explained. Yeah, an important word there is shouldn't. So yeah, skeptically, and she laughed. Still, I suppose there are less noble things we could die doing, she added, feeling that she may be a better pony than I was. Right. Wait until I get back and we'll all get out of here together. There were about 100 ponies in here, Ryan reminded me. There was also an army slave trapped in the infernal mine downstairs, but I couldn't save every pony. But Cherry could at least make a difference right here, right now. The mayor in question looked at me somewhat sympathetically. He at least seemed to hit her.
How about you? Where are you going?
She asked firmly. My smile faltered. I need to find out where that stable is. So I remember as a seriously son, remember? I'll come back when anyone comes after you. Get out of town and run with those tracks flat as soon as you can. I explained bluntly. My head is somewhat shameful. She's not the only one who seemed to think I had completely lost this idea as she shuddered. The tensed. Since she didn't like this plan, determined ideas were personally Do you trust me? A broad question silently turned my eyes on me. I never realized just how beautiful I'd been. Those fears pushed earnestly. She took a deep breath. All I did was stay with them now before I come back to the
Wait. If you're going up there, then I should come with you.
Cliff said as he watched me. No. These slaves need more capable ponies than I do. You need to help them because you're the only pony who knows how to get around this place if things really go wrong. I told him as the sense of responsibility and Lolo Colt's expression was immediate, and he didn't seem to like it. Gave a weak nod as I turned to the door. I noticed the word tracks imprinted in the concrete above it. Sign now rebranded with a bloody word furnace.
Dragonfire?
Sure, he called freely. I looked back to see her stood stoically in the center of this foul-smelling room. Responsibility levitating perpendicular before her.
Please. Please don't die.
She pleaded with a slightly nervous smile on her face. I swallowed all of my doubts. Could she really trust me? My guess is yes, she could. I steeled my mental determination and self-conviction with the intent that in this I would not waver. Then I nodded to her and smiled. Don't worry, it takes more than a bunch of slavers to kill me. That's if they can find me, I told her, lifting up my pit buck and grinning as I levitated the stealth buck I've been carrying with me for the past few days. Fruit now. Level up. New perk added. Tough hide. Level 1. Be a gunshot goal, the brutal experiences of the Equestrian Wasteland have hardened you. You gain +3 to damage threshold for each level of this perk you take.